Let's go to the state of the market and the state of the nation and the state of the economy with Ike Chioke, who is the Group Chief Executive Officer at Afrinvest. Good morning. It's good to have you.
Good morning.
The first handshake in 2018. we have a lot to talk about, but I think the best way to start is to look at this former president's letter, and I'm going to not taking you through the political side of it, but he talked about the economy and what we need to run the state of the economy.
Correct.
What's your first word?
I read a letter too. I read President Obasanjo's document in full, all of 20 pages of it yesterday, and I think he hit the nail on the head. Indeed, the president has at his disposal the opportunity to enlist very talented Nigerians to help him with managing the economy. But if there's any mistake or if there's any error that comes out of it, the president actually is the one that takes both the glory as well as the damage that comes from that result.
The former president says, economy feeds on politics.
Correct.
And because our politics is depressing, our economy is even more depressing today. That's taking the economy to everything here, or politics, as it were.
Well, to be fair, the economy is actually recovered quite nicely from the very depressing recession we entered into in 2016. And 2017 was a year of recovery. And indeed, if you look at all the economic managers, both from the Ministry of Finance, the Central Bank, to the economic management team and the presidency, they've done a sterling job in pulling the economy from the brink of that recession back into growth. If you recall, in 2016, we had a negative GDP growth of minus 1.6%. 2017, we're estimating that given the 3 positive quarters of growth, we'll end the year at about 0.7% GDP growth. And into 2018, we're forecasting 2.1% GDP growth. So indeed, the economy has come out of the recession. But the point of depressing could be the illusion that if your population is growing around 3 to 4% per year, then you need to actually be doubling that in terms of the growth of GDP. Once upon a time, if you recall, Nigeria used to grow around 6 to 7% GDP growth per annum. But these days, we are all eager to applaud ourselves when we get to 1 percentage point. So there is still a lot of work to do to get our economic engine to be, moving ahead as it should be.
So we're going to go back to your first comment and the former president when he talked about making good use of good Nigerians in the area of the economy. Correct. What would you like to see moving forward from where we are right now in terms of economic management team that the Buhari's administration need to have in place for the remainder of his tenure in office?
Well, the point I'd like to make is that you should never waste an economic recession when it happens. And unfortunately, some of the major reforms that could have been done when we were in recession didn't quite happen. Of course, we saw the economic recovery and growth plan, and it has these ambitious goals about things it wants to achieve under sort of 5 pillars. The first being achieving macroeconomic stability. But further down, there are issues around reforming the power sector, reforming the oil and gas sector. These are critical areas that can, unleash that engine of growth in Nigeria. But where we are today, we actually have the economy growing, and we have a combination of a confluence of positive things that are happening. Some we did achieve by ourselves, others were just accidental. Take, for instance, the central bank introduced the investors and exporters window in April last year. From that moment on, we saw a stabilization of the naira to the dollar. You didn't have the massive fluctuations we were seeing before. We went from 520 naira to the dollar in the parallel market to now 363, making the naira appreciate about 35% in the course of the year. And investors took that signal and came in and speaking with their money. The CBN intervened in the markets by the tune of about $15.4 billion last year. But at the same time, the I&E window traded about $28 billion. That shows you that investors were much more encouraged by the fact that you had a transparent and open platform for them to bring in their money and take it out. So that is positive. And that was done by our economic management team. But if you look at the oil price environment, we are not really the one dictating the price of oil. But oil price has been benevolent to us. Once upon a time, we were in the $30 per barrel region, struggling to balance our current account balances. Today, we have a budget benchmark at $45 and oil is trading around 70. So we have this positive accretion that will go into the excess crude account. It allows the government to plan knowing there's a buffer, and then we can move forward. Now, all that additional buffer, this is a good time where the confluence of this positive effect, you've got the rising external reserves. We have $40 billion. You've got influx of dollars coming in from foreign portfolio investors. You've got the capital markets responding. It was up 42% last year. It's up already over 17% this year. So you've got this confidence that's come back into the economic engine of Nigeria. This is a good time not to waste a boom. This is a good time to restructure that economy further, as they have indicated in their ERGP, and go and touch at the key critical points. That oil and gas sector that is a perennial problem. They say we're not subsidizing PMS, but we are subsidizing, or you can see scarcity on the road. Power sector, we tried to privatize, it didn't quite do a good job. The issues around tariff and, cost-reflective tariff, So there are quite a lot of areas that the information is there, the talent is there at the disposal of the president. And if you actually were to unleash these people to do the right thing, then you get this economy away from the depressing state that President Obasanjo has alluded in his letter.
Take this entire letter to the marketplace for us. Vis-a-vis the 60-page report that your organization launched yesterday, which a bit of insight into what the markets and economy playbook will look like in the new year.
In our report, which we've titled The Virtuous Cycle, we are sort of highlighting that a confluence of events have put Nigeria in a situation where we've moved away from the depressing state of 2016 when we were in a recession to a situation today where we're seeing growth in GDP. We're forecasting 2.1% for 2018. We're seeing external reserves of $40 billion and forecasted to continue accreting month on month because the oil price environment is going to be benevolent. We're looking at sort of a range of between $65 to $70 throughout the rest of the year. Meanwhile, we have a budget benchmark at 45. We're seeing inflation coming down. Yeah, we were around 18% at the beginning of the year. We ended around 15%. At the beginning of 2017, we ended out around 15% last December. And we can see it trending towards 11, 12% by the end of this year. We've seen foreign portfolio investment come in to support, and they're taking advantage of opportunities, both in the fixed income and the equities market. Both were very active last year. The equities market has buoyed up significantly to their 42% growth in 2017, and this year already is 17% year to date. So all of those are positive, and these events, some of them we did ourselves, some we didn't. We're just accidental. But it's right, and it makes you wonder. Investors now want to come into the market. I'm having clients who have not traded their equity portfolio since 2008 coming to move their account from dormant position to active. And you're asking, are they going to now come in and overheat this market?
So that brings us to a very, very important part of the entire discussion, the investment strategy, therefore. We've seen a few reports from other organizations and say, look, there's going to be a bit of political risk expansion perhaps in the first quarter of the year. We want to know whether you agree with that. Okay. But again, 24 hours ago, the IMF released the World Economic Outlook in Davos and says, look, Nigeria would have modest growth even above South Africa for this year. South Africa will be around 1%, Nigeria will be about 2.1%. Some say it's 2.6% for this year. The president's budget 2018 proposal was 3.2%, whatever, which that is too ambitious. Put it all together and see, where does that give me a space so that we don't overheat the financial markets, that we've had some gains in 2018 and lose everything the way we lost almost everything in 2014-2015 period.
And that is the point. You've got to be cautious when you see a recovery. And so while we advocate that people should come back to the market and participate, I think this year, at least for the first half, you need to be an active but cautious trader. Active in the point that you can't just leave your money and go to sleep. If you can't do it yourself, you must get a good broker.
2018 is not a year to go to sleep.
No, you've got to be alert.
It's not
and we'll see a lot of volatility. You see the market run up, and it will see profit taking. It will run up again to profit taking. Earnings will be released around March. You see some positive numbers. We'd expect the banking sector to do very well. And you see some people come in there to take advantage of those earnings numbers. Then there'll be profit taking. And we expect a positive trajectory, but very volatile. Now, beyond June, we'd expect that when the INEC window is open for electioneering to start, some investors might say, you know what, I've already made my returns for 2018.
I don't want to get in the middle of the politicians.
Take off my profits and run.
I don't want to get trampled.
So you can see a potential decline, sell-off around that time. And then while we then see how the election pans out.
At time's running fast, about a minute or two with you. Do you think President Obasanjo's latest, the way out, special press statement, that's what it's called, it's not a letter to the current president, I say it's a special press statement. So I think it has a message in there for everybody. I've read it as well. Do you think we should take this as an investment research report about Nigeria?
Well, it ends up with a depressing economy.
Can I take the President Obasanjo's statement to the market today and say, this is what the former president says, two-time president, I think this is a research report?
No, I think in the short term, the economy cannot be characterized as depressing. I think the economic and the markets are actually quite exciting where we are today, and there's opportunity for investors to come in. Now, over the long term, and that is where he's talking about, how do we get this economy to, meet the aspirations of the teeming youth we have? We've got 11 million kids are not in primary school. We've got an unemployment index that suggests about 18 or 20 million people are unemployed.